Hello and welcome to another edition of the Fed Flash Face-Off. Of course, I'm Gary Ryan, Fed League Flash. Thank you so much for joining me. And whether you're here for just a little bit or for the long haul, I appreciate you tuning in. All right, so yeah, a lot of stuff coming up. We got power rankings, the final power rankings of the year coming up today. We also have our flash chat, some things that I would love to be able to tweak with the Fed, things that we'd like to see maybe get handled a little differently, some possible improvements. You never know. Hey, you never know until you ask and you try. But anyway, we got a lot of stuff, obviously, news and notes, and we're also going to be featuring a little snapshot of the standings. There's not as much details to cover right now, so there you go. Anyway, lots to come up. So again, thank you for joining me. Always remember, you can always go down here, hit more, and it'll take you to all the different segments of this video. Just click on the timestamp that you want. You can start right there. Watch more if you want. I'd be thrilled if you did, but if you can't, that's okay. I understand. All right, well, here we go. Let's begin our show. All right, last time we're doing this season, power rankings. Obviously, there's not much sense in doing power rankings after the conclusion of the regular season. So, and power rankings, obviously, is just kind of suggestive anyway. It doesn't really give an indicator as far as who's doing what for the playoffs. It can kind of help guide you there, but generally, this is just kind of grading the progression of a team at this point. All right, so I have repopulated number 14. No surprise there. It's Biloxi. This season, frankly, has been an unmitigated disaster. At the beginning of the year, I had picked. Let's see, where did I pick Biloxi? I picked them 9th in my power rankings. I did not know that things were going to happen the way they did, especially with the lack of defense and a lot of players that were going to come in and just never did. So, yeah, it's been rough. All right. Down 2 places, number 13, it's the Watertown Wolves. They've lost 11 in a row. I'm not really faulting anyone or anything other than they just lost in a huge amount of talent as the year went on, especially on the offensive end. I thought the trade for trading Klink away was a mistake. Yeah, but that's me. They lost a couple players to visa issues. And at the end, you've got just kind of a ragtag group of young players just kind of trying to prove they fit into the FPHL, whether it's in Watertown or somewhere else next year, just looking to make their mark. But yeah, it's been a rough year in Watertown. I don't think they have had this bad of a season before. All right, so that means that we are looking ahead to the next, next couple of teams stepping up a little bit. And number 12, we put Indiana. So they're 4-6 in their last 10 games. They're playing decent. Obviously, they just knocked off Athens this last week. They have been playing much more consistent. So now they're heading into the final weekend with a chance to jump over Watertown in the standings, and I think they can. Watertown has 2 games left against Port Huron. Indiana has 3 games left against Topeka. And Topeka's been struggling a bit as of late. So I think it can happen. All right. That means another team jumping up 1 place, Baton Rouge Zydeco, also playing much much better. At least for one game, they found their offense this last week, scoring 7 goals. That was pretty amazing. And Baton Rouge just is about where I figured they would finish. At the beginning of the year, I picked them for 12th. They finished at 11. So, I thought they were going to be the 7th place team in the Continental, and then Biloxi said, "Hold my beer." I don't mean that as any kind of disrespect for Biloxi, but it was just things did not go well. We'll just say that. All right, number 10, and this is where I've had them the last couple of weeks. It's Twin City Thunderbirds. Missing out on the playoffs for the first time in their team history, whether they were called Carolina Thunderbirds or Twin City. Yeah, this is the first time that they are out. And everything is really crooked here. Weird. Anyway, it just wasn't meant to be. A lot of personnel changes through the year, very uncharacteristic for a Winston-Salem team. There's usually a lot more continuity on the team from beginning to the end, and we just didn't really have that. Despite a rough season, Boris Babick played fantastic this year. It wasn't meant to be this year. All right, so number 9, and this is the last of the teams that aren't making the playoffs, aren't going to be in the playoffs. It's the Danbury Hat-Tricks. Now, they've been playing pretty good as of late. They're 7-3 in their last 10 games. And, I think there's some good things that they can build on. Obviously, some changes need to come. I'm not sure if there's going to be changes in the front office or on the bench or not. I don't know. But, this season just wasn't up to the standards that Danbury's fans have for the team. Obviously, you lose Johnny Ruiz, unfortunately, for the last 2.5, 3 months of the season. Just a lot of in and out stuff, a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on. Not typical of Danbury, and whether it's the Hat-Tricks or the Whalers or the Titans, just don't typically see this much frustration. So, they're number 9. And so now we get into the playoff teams that we're going to be seeing this weekend as I am airing this. We're pretty much decided on who's finishing where, except for Athens and Monroe. But anyway, number 8, the PD Ice Cats. I would say that you would have to call their first season in the FPHL a definite success, leading the league in attendance and making the playoffs in the first year. There was some ins and outs with players and the rosters, as they try and find out what works, what doesn't work. And they figured it out just right at the end there. So going into the first round, we'll see who they play. But PD, a very, very good year. There's a really good relationship going on with the team, the organization, and the community. A real good tie-in. It usually takes a long time for that relationship to build and develop. And I think right off the bat, PD was just really tying themselves into the community very successfully. Great job by Mike Rowan and Kevin Kupia and everyone in the office to help make this a season to remember. And of course, the fans love it. First time they've seen hockey in 20 years. So it's been good. All right, number 7 is the Topeka Scarecrows. And that's where I had them last week. It's been a struggle this year at times. There's the core of a good team there, a great system in place as far as, they don't usually give up a ton of goals. They had a couple of fluky games, but generally speaking, Topeka you go into Topeka to play them, and you're probably only going to score 3 or 4 goals at best. Fantastic system set up by Robbie Nichols, and good job by Don Lewis and the ownership there, getting the first-year team established there, and they are also working on improving the relationships, building on the relationships in the community. I know they do a lot of activities with schools in the area, which is great to see. Reach out to the youth. So that's the way you grow your brand. And so yeah, I think it's been a good season. The last month and a half, they've kind of stumbled a little bit, but they're still going. They're in the playoffs, so we'll see what happens. All right, number 6, down 1 from last week, or about 2 weeks ago, rather, and that's the Columbus River Dragons. It's just kind of weird. This team has been so streaky all year long, and unfortunately, right now, they're on a down streak. They've only gone 3-6-1 in their last 10. Not exactly the way you want to head into the playoffs. And of course, they're going to be taking on either Monroe or Athens. So hopefully, maybe this weekend against PD, they can get some things figured out. Well, we'll see what happens. I think that Columbus PD series is going to be very interesting. All right, so number 5, and moving up once again. They've moved up the last couple of times we've done power rankings, and that is the Blue Ridge Bobcats, one of the hottest teams in the league. They are 9-1 in their last 10. Their offense has been humming. One of the best signings they had this year was Demid Padrazov. Him joining together with Nikita Kozarev has been the dynamic duo, and they've been fantastic. And it really has propelled Blue Ridge, not just offensively, but also defensively. They're playing better defensively as well. So yeah, they're a team that could make some noise in this first round when they take on the Port Huron Prowlers. We will see. Speaking of Port Huron, they are number 4, and that's where I had them last week. Let's see, 6-3-1 in their last 10. Their main problem right now at the moment is injuries. They have quite a few of their core members that are just not back yet, ready to play. They should be in time for the playoffs. So first round, hoping that they're going to be healthy and ready to go. But they've had a good season. It's the best season in Port Huron history since the year they won the cup. So and the second year they had a great team. And then after that, it's been a struggle until the last couple of years. Last year, they did pretty well. They got in the playoffs, made some noise. This year, they're a better team than they were last year. So we'll see what happens. All right. That takes us down to our last 3, and they're unchanged. Monroe, I still put them just a tiny hair behind Athens. I think Athens is a more complete team. However, Athens is missing some key personnel. You've been talking about Garrett Milan being out. Hopefully, he'll be ready for the playoffs. You've been missing Ben Durkin. You've been missing. I'm talking about Athens, and I'm supposed to be talking about Monroe. Monroe, fantastic. They've got 3 lines that roll very well. My concern with them is their goaltending. Hasn't been terrible, but hasn't been great either. There have been some standout performances sprinkled about here and there from Chris Branch and Tyler Masternak. But, some days it's kind of like, I don't know, this could be a weak point. Having Frank Schumacher back in the lineup really, really helps a lot. He is the anchor on defense, and we saw when Schumacher went out with injury, they struggled. They struggled defensively at times. So, and they still have several other great defensemen, but when you have your anchor, your rock in the middle, that helps everything. So we'll see what happens. Okay, now I can go back to talking about Athens missing some players. They're missing Van Durken. They're missing Gokharev. They're missing Milan. The jury is still out on, was the Gus Ford trade worth it? I don't think we can make a decision on that right now for either Twin City or Athens. Twin City did become a better club with the 3 new guys in there. Wasn't quite enough to buoy them into the playoffs, but they played better. Athens scoring a lot with Gus Ford. Gus has been rejuvenated. He's scoring goals left and right, obviously just joining the 200 goal club, which I failed to announce in my Sunday video, my game recap video, and that was an oversight that I deeply regret because it's a big deal. There's only 6 players that have scored 200 or more goals in the FPHL. I failed to mention that, and I'm sorry. My apologies to Gus Ford, to Athens, to the fans. Huge accomplishment. Huge. The talent of Gus Ford can't be debated. It just, was moving for him enough. We'll see. All right, finally, we have Binghamton Black Bears, first overall in standings. They have home ice advantage throughout. They've been playing really, really well, and now they have probably the best goaltending duo in single A hockey. I'm talking about both the Fed and the SPHL. You could debate against, kind of put up a debate against Peoria with Latinovich and Bostet. But guess who was a third member there? Connor McAnanima, who is back with the Binghamton Black Bears. You got Tomei, easily the best goaltender in the league this year. And then McAnanima as a number 2. That's got to scare everybody else in the playoffs. It really does. Binghamton's a little banged up right now. We'll see, hopefully beginning of round 1, they will be healthy and ready to go. But so there you go. So all the way from Biloxi up to Binghamton, there is our final power rankings. From my initial picks at the beginning of the year, the big movers, the really big movers. Let's see. I thought Danbury was going to be better this year than they were. They dropped down 4. Same with Twin City. We had Monroe moving up 5 places from where I picked them. I initially picked them as the 8th place team in the league. And they're 3rd. Biloxi dropped 5. Nobody saw this coming at the beginning of the year. And Topeka. I didn't know what they were going to look like at the beginning of the year. I had them at 11th. That was greatly underrated. And they've done a lot better. So they've moved up 4. So those are our, really big movers from when I did everything right at the beginning of the season. I had 3 teams place where they are now. That's where I picked them at the beginning of the year, that being Binghamton, Athens, and Watertown. All right, so that wraps up our final power rankings. I'm going to miss doing this until it's time to do it again in October. But anyway, okay, we go on.
What did he say?
So today for our chat, I'm using kind of an exaggerated title because this isn't really the essence of what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to say the Fed needs to be fixed, but fix the Fed. What can we do to help make the FPHL a better product than what it is? And I'm not saying this from the aspect of saying this is a terrible product. It's single A hockey. It is what it is. We know what we have with the FPHL. We're not claiming to be NHL wannabes, but this is a starting point for a lot of people in their pro careers as they move from college or juniors onwards. And again, since the word prospects is in the title of the FPHL, we want to make this more of a platform where people can advance their career and move up. All right, so I've divided this up into 4 main categories because of all the fixes or tweaks that I thought of. They all fall under one of 4 categories. Let's start off first with what I think is the most obvious area where I think there needs to be some improvement, and that is the FPHL website, federalhockey.com. All right, pretty good for what it is, for what the Fed is, but there are some problems that are built into it that I think can get resolved and improved upon. Okay, so under the website, first suggestion I have is, and this has been a pet peeve of mine for a long time. All right, there needs to be a change in the system for what the parameters, what defines a power play is, because right now what we have is not accurate. We have teams getting 10, 11, 12 power plays on the Fed website, when in actuality, by definition of the game, they only have 7 or 8 power play opportunities. Okay, first of all, coincidental minors does not create a power play. It creates an equal strength situation, you're 4-on-4. But the way things get reported by the off-ice officials and translated into the website, right now, teams are given a power play opportunity out of that. Same with fighting, okay? The only time that there's a power play in a fighting situation is if, and we see this in the rules sometimes, one player gets penalized 5 minutes for fighting because he dropped the gloves. The other player didn't, so they don't get a fighting major. So you have just the one. Yeah, that's a power play. That's a 5-minute power play by definition of the NHL rule book, which supposedly the FPHL is supposed to follow. All right, so fix the whole power play numbers situation. Then we'll have real actual numbers as far as power plays, proficiency by teams, proficiency on the kill. Special teams numbers will then be accurate. All right, next thing you need to do, and I am a firm believer in this, you need to hire 2 people. The FPHL needs to hire 2 people full-time. All they do is manage the website. Right now, it's a hodgepodge. If Sarge has time to enter some stuff in, he does. If Dave Jackson has time to enter stuff in, he does. All right, you got 2 people. You give those 2 people the keys, basically, and those 2 work in tandem with each other, keeping communication lines open. All right, this is what we're putting in. This is, we're updating this. This is the new thing on the website. And those 2 people also interact to make sure that what they are typing is accurate. Because, for example, this last week we had a situation where Dyson Skinner, released by the Binghamton Black Bears, erroneously reported initially, oh yeah, Columbus picked him up. No, Columbus didn't pick him up. Port Huron picked him up on waivers. So yeah, we had a whole situation where Skinner literally went down to Columbus saying, yeah, I'm here. And Columbus saying, why are you here? So, that's using an example. We need to fix that. All right. Game reports, transactions, leader stats, all that kind of stuff is handled by two people specifically designated as website managers, if you will. All right. The other thing I think needs to change with the website, and this isn't necessarily specifically with the website, but it is in regards to how the FPHL carried on things this year. They wanted to give teams more control as far as reporting their transactions. A lot of things didn't get reported or got reported erroneously to the league. It led to a lot of confusion. Nobody really knew if these transactions that were happening to my favorite team were real or not because, well, it's on my team's Facebook page, but it's not on transactions. It never was. Okay, everything needs to go back to being posted in the transactions page. It needs to be done. Okay, so that's under website. Next, let's talk about the schedule. I think there needs to be changes made to the schedule. I think we all can agree that this year the schedule was awful, terrible. Playing your closest geographical rival 15, 16, 17 times, it's overkill. All right. We had 1 million fans this year. I think we could have had more like 1.2 million if the fans had been more interested in team schedules. I mean, Watertown, you can only handle seeing Binghamton so many times, and half of your home games were against Binghamton. Ridiculous. I understand travel costs and all that, but we've got to balance it out. All right, so first thing I think needs to happen is follow suit with what the SPHL is doing. Move to a 60-game schedule. Now, I know that means midweek games. Those aren't the biggest draws, but you look at it from the glass half full perspective. All right, you've got more dates at home. All right, 4 more dates at home compared to 56. Now you got 60. Now you got 30 dates. Yeah, you try and prioritize your Friday and Saturday matchups, but okay, everybody bites the bullet a little bit on this. You don't make as much money as you would with a Friday draw by playing a Wednesday game. However, you're still making money because people are still coming in, and maybe you don't have a crowd of 4,000, maybe it's only 2,000, but you're still drawing in 2,000 fans for a midweek game. All right, I think you need to move to a 60-game schedule. Now, that's better preparation for these players to move up to the SP, to the ECHL, maybe even the AHL. Okay, they all play longer schedules. So that's a better preparation rather than sitting at 56 games. All right, another thing that I feel like really should be changed: everyone plays everybody in your division, and everybody in the Empire meets at least once at home and once on the road. Yeah, I know travel costs are going to go up. All right, I think that's a concession that the owners have to make. Everybody's going to be sharing in those travel costs. Your budget is going to need to be expanded a little bit, which ties into something I'll cover a little bit later. Okay, with expansion. Yes, we are going to talk about expansion. All right. I think this is no brainer. Everybody plays on Thanksgiving Eve. Everybody plays on New Year's Eve. Why? Because they are huge draws. Okay. The last 3 years, when we've had games on Thanksgiving Eve and New Year's Eve, huge crowds in every arena that the games are being played in, that's mandatory. In my mind, that really should be mandatory. So it's a cash cow. You're sitting on a cash cow, and you know, you need to utilize this. So, all right. The other thing is cap the number of times you play another opponent, which I alluded to just a little bit ago with Binghamton Watertown, for example. Okay, you don't play anybody more than 12 times a year. All right, if Blue Ridge and Twin City play each other 12 times, all right, fine. But let's fill out the schedule. Let's round out the schedule more. Let's cap that, because frankly, Blue Ridge is sick of seeing Twin City. Twin City is sick of seeing Blue Ridge. It gets to be too much. The term is familiarity breeds contempt, and it really does. It really, really does. And I don't mean from a standpoint of an intense rivalry, which I think the league thinks that that's what the end result is, but it really isn't. The fans get turned off. The fans get bored. And frankly, the players do too. The players make comments. I've seen the players make comments. Oh, we're playing Athens again. I mean, yeah, sure. You want to if you're Columbus, you want to gear up for your big in-state rival. But, 15, 16 times is too much. So that needs to be fixed. All right. The third category is the playoffs. I think there's some tweaks that can be made to the playoffs to make them more interesting, more exciting, and keep things even more competitive than they are. First of all, instead of having your 4 teams from the Empire Division, 4 teams from the Continental Division, okay, create just top 8 seeds. All right, the top 8 teams with points, they get in the playoffs. Then what you do is something that the league has done in the past, and it worked. And I don't know why they went away with it. Well, went away from it. But okay, you have teams 1 through 8. They're in the playoffs now. First of all, that keeps more teams in the mix longer, so you get more excitement, because you're going right down to the wire now. Is who's gonna cinch up that 8th seed. So what you do then is, okay, regular season just ended. Here's your 8 teams. Now, team number 1 overall and team number 2 overall, you pick your opponents. You choose who you want to play. All right. The league did that for quite a few years, and it worked. So, like just using for an example, let's say Binghamton doesn't want to play Topeka in the first round. They want to play Blue Ridge. I'm just using this as an example. Okay, so they say, okay, we want to play Blue Ridge. Okay, Athens, who do you want to play? Oh, yeah, we want to play Columbus. All right, fine. Then the remaining 4 seeds get factored in: highest seed, lowest seed, middle seeds. I think that would add a lot more competitiveness going into the playoffs. Another thing I think you should change is starting the whole season a week earlier. Instead of starting on October 10th, you start on October 3rd. All right. The NHL usually starts around October 3rd, 4th, 5th. All right. So push things back to that week. Then, because you've moved everything up a week, now you have an extra week for playoffs, meaning first round is still a best 2 out of 3. And then the next 2 rounds are best of 5. And you do what we've done the last couple of years, where week 1, play at the lower seed. Week 2, you play at the higher seed. I think that would really improve the quality of the playoff games, because right now, 3-game series, short series, it's not always necessarily the best team that wins. It's the team that's hot, and you're pretty much, if a team kind of limped into the playoffs, well, they're pretty much guaranteed they're going to be out really quick in 2 games under the current system. But if you change that in the second round to, this is now a best of 5, These teams are going to have to work to get these games won and to move to the finals. And then, of course, you keep the finals a best of 5. That gives you 5 weeks total for the playoffs as opposed to 4. I think it's going to be better. So there's my ideas for the playoffs. Finally, expansion. Yeah, we need to do something about this, because right now, geographically, things are a mess. With ownership, things are a mess in a lot of markets, which is why I'm wearing my Bashers shirt here, just as a little reminder of what happens when you just kind of throw something together, hodgepodge, willy-nilly, and you don't vet ownership. All right. So to help promote the longevity of existing franchises, so you just don't have 2 years and you're out, or 3 years and you're out. You have an ownership group that's really not invested into the team. To avoid that, all right, first of all, maximum 2 new teams in a given year. All right, like we have had this year. Now, we have Mid-South coming in. We have Minnesota coming in. They're locked in. There's still question about Motor City at this point. But if you do that, the way that the league is doing things with the expansion draft, all the established teams get hurt. And a lot of players more so get hurt, because a lot of players can't just necessarily move to Minnesota to play, or to Memphis to play. I'm just making something up here, but let's say we go to the expansion draft, and let's say Caden Kanderka from Danbury is unprotected. All right, and Mid-South says, we want Kanderka. We're going to choose him in the expansion draft. Kanderka's got obligations and things he's got to do. He can't necessarily pack up and move to Memphis to continue his career. So to that end, we're going to go through a couple of things here. I already alluded to it. There needs to be a much more vigorous vetting of potential ownership groups. So you don't have a Pat Manning in Hudson Valley. You don't have a repeat of the Barry Soskin era. All right. You have someone who is going to be actually involved with the team, is going to invest in the team, not just financially, but with their time, with their effort. That needs to be improved. And I think it should be handled by a third party, kind of like doing an audit. Any kind of corporate audit is oftentimes handled through an arbitrator or a third party. I think that should happen. We should hire an independent third party to come in and look at these ownership groups and say, is this best? That third party then works with the board of governors and the executive board and says, yeah, we think this ownership group that wants to put a team in Jonestown, yeah, they're going to be good. They're going to work out. It's going to be a good investment. Or there's a lot of red flags here. You don't want to do this. You don't want to approve this. Save yourself a lot of heartache later on. I think we need the cap expansion of the league off at 16 teams. God forbid we have situations where a team is obviously going to fold. Okay, then you look for an expansion market. You try and establish something in a new place. But generally speaking, I think 16 is about the maximum that a league of this level and magnitude can really handle. I also think that we need to eliminate not only the expansion draft, but also the dispersal drafts, because every year we have teams that know how to play the game and know how to create their protective lists, so that, it's not necessarily that they're leaving Joe Schmo unprotected because they don't want him. They just know, well, Joe Schmo's not going to play for another team. He's either going to sign with us, re-sign with us for next year, or he's not playing. All right, but yeah, and the way it happens right now is you have uh, teams in the outer reaches of the league. Somebody from Danbury again might not be able to play in Memphis or Monroe or Topeka or Minneapolis, or I would say Minneapolis, Minnesota. That it just might not work. So what I think they should do instead is get to the end of the year. You still have your protected list, okay? Every team still protects their 12 players. Yeah, these are the guys, these are ours. The other 12 are made free agents. And what happens in my proposal here is that your two new teams, Memphis and Mid-South, and Minnesota, are given first crack at signing free agents. This ensures that someone from Minnesota is actually calling the players and instead of wasting their time and the players' time, hey, Joe Schmo, would you be interested in coming here to play? No, wouldn't work for you? Okay, well, thank you for your time. We'll move on. Make the next call. Okay, but if Joe Schmo says, yeah, sure, I'll come. Okay, then they sign. Instead of 12, you sign 16. Okay, so trade off. Minnesota signs a free agent. Mid-South side the free agent. You keep going back and forth until you reach your 16. Then whatever remaining free agents are left. Okay, if a player was under contract with Athens, they were made a temporary free agent. Nobody signed them from Minnesota or Mid-South. Okay, now my rights go back to I'm an Athens player. All right, that ensures that the established teams can keep a lot of their players that they have worked very, very hard to recruit and to bring in and to develop. And also, this gives the two new teams a chance at getting better players. Okay, they're picking from the leftovers, but they're picking from better leftovers. I think that's what needs to happen. You just get rid of the dispersal draft. The team folds. Everyone automatically becomes a free agent. There's no, dispersal draft. And then they're given the chance to sign wherever. Okay. Being that the team has folded, chances are they haven't played really well. So you're not talking about, Gus Ford, he played on a team that went bust and he's just floating around out there. Okay. It's not players of Gus Ford's caliber. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, I think, you keep the protected list. You do a temporary free agent signing window. Unprotected players are free agents for that time, and then they have the option, just going back to the team they've been with, or they become free agents. So I think those are some changes that can be made to the league to make it a better product, to make it a better fit into the general hockey community. Again, prospects is part of the name. Let's treat these players like prospects, not like property. All right. Anyway, so those are my ideas. And if you have some ideas, suggestions, send them to me, and maybe we'll discuss them in a future mailbag. And you can have your say. And I got an idea. I really think this will work. Love to hear it.
He shoots and scores.
talk about the big matchup. Yep, this is it. This is for all the marbles, so to speak. Athens traveling to Monroe. These teams have already played 11 times, and it comes down to the final two, in which they are trying to determine positioning in the playoffs. Now, both of these teams, regardless of how things turn out, are going to host or have home ice advantage for their first round matchups. But I think for obvious reasons, just for advantage throughout the playoffs, both teams would like to finish in the number one spot if it's all possible. All right, so let's dig into this just a little bit. So Athens 42, 11, and 119 points. Their big lead from just a few weeks ago has shrunken down to just 1 point as Monroe has crept up in the standings. They are 38, 9, and 7, 118 points. All right. 34 regulation wins for Athens, 35 for Monroe. So that's the thing, is Athens has more points, but Monroe has the tiebreaker. And being that this is pretty much down to 1 point, that could come into play. Now, as we look at the numbers head to head, Athens has won 9 of the 11 matchups. The last time the two teams met, though, it was a very convincing 6-3 win by the Moccasins. That was just a couple weeks ago. Goals scored, 50 for Athens, 37 for Monroe. All right. In their last 10, Athens is 6-3-1, Monroe 6-2-2. And we just kind of look at some of the other numbers, just, interesting numbers. Athens averages 4.9 goals scored per game. Monroe is an even 5.0. And goal differentials, very healthy for both teams. Plus 90 for Athens, plus 100 for Monroe. They are the second team to, at least for now, be at that 100 mark as far as, they've scored 100 more goals than they have allowed. So, power play numbers, 21% for Athens. That's where they've been all year, right around 21, 22%. And their penalty kill, 82.6%. Again, very constant throughout the year. They've been roughly around 81, 82, 83% all year long. Now, in Monroe's case, though, very interesting. Their penalty kill numbers are going down. At one point, they were near a 90%. They are down to 83.8% now. And the good side is that the penalty, or the power play, is a lot better, 25.9%. And that has risen significantly over the last 15 games or so. And that is a real big key. Heading into the playoffs, you want your power play being very effective. And being that their numbers have just gone up over the last few weeks, that says it's more than healthy, it's lethal. So, let me take these off so I can really see over here. Okay, comparing the number one goalies, or what are considered number one goalies. You have Carter McPhail for Athens, 296 goals against, a 912 save percentage, and 3 shutouts. Meanwhile, getting the bulk of the starts has been Tyler Masternak. He is sitting at 2.75 goals against, so a little bit better there. Save percentage isn't quite as good as McPhail's, though, 910. He also has a shutout. Okay, if you talk about the backup goaltenders, you have William Lavalier for Athens. He's been around for a while. He's got a lot of playoff experience and everything. So, I kind of have to give a goaltending edge to Athens. Chris Branch, he's just starting his career off pretty early in his pro career. He's backing up Masternak. All right, leading scorers for each team. Of course, for Athens, it's Gus Ford. He has been on fire ever since joining Athens. Of course, he just crossed the 200 goal plateau for his career, having a fantastic year. And then for Monroe, in total points, you have two players tied with each other. You have Carlos Forneris and Jared Christie. However, Christie has 10 more goals scored than Forneris. Forneris is more of a setup guy. Two players with 82 points on Monroe. So they could have an advantage. The most important thing, though, is all of this. All right. You've been missing Austin Albrecht for about a month now in Monroe, but the team has proven that basically they can still succeed and play at a very high level without Albrecht. And that's not meaning that Albrecht wasn't important, but the team has made the appropriate adjustments. Athens, they've struggled as of late. First of all, they've dealt with some injuries, and they also have a couple players that are having visa issues right now. So right now, you're missing Milan, you're missing Van Durken, you're missing Glukharev. Now, due to suspension, you're also missing Philippe Virgili and Malik Johnson. That's a huge, huge amount of offense that is now missing. Milan hopefully will be healthy in time for the playoffs, but he is not going to be available for this weekend. So, what do we say about that? Boil it all down, though. What makes this series so important is what's at stake. Number one seed in the Continental. If you get the top seed, you play PD in the opening round. If you get the second seed, you play Columbus in the first round. All right. So Athens, they need one win, a regulation win. They need 3 points, but it has to be a regulation. Well, actually, no. 3 points. If they get 3 points, that will cinch it. If they win in regulation on Friday, it's over. It's settled. But if Monroe wins, whether it be overtime win or regulation win, the matchup goes on. If they get 4 points in any way, shape, or form, it could be an overtime win and an overtime win. All right, they would take the division. Even if it was just the 4 points, well, then that gives Athens 2. You have 1 more point. So that's what's at stake. If Monroe ends up with 3 points and Athens ends up with 3 points, well, Athens has 1 more point. So the onus is a bit on Monroe for this, but they got the home ice crowd. They're in their familiar territory. They've been playing really, really well lately, and their lineup is not decimated right now. So I will make a prediction here on the Fed Flash Face-Off, which I normally don't do, but I'm going to do it here. I think Monroe gets the 4 points. I think they do. I think they win a game, and then whether they just go to overtime and hold off, yeah, I think it happens. So that's the matchup of the week. It's going to be very, very interesting. I think a lot of people are going to be watching, as they should. So there you go. That's that. Let's close out things heading into news and notes. So this week, have a couple of things to touch on, and then we're going to break down what we do know about the upcoming playoffs. All right. First of all, I want to touch on this. I know a lot of you have been asking questions, expressing your frustration as far as what is, or more accurately, what is not going on as far as public information in regards to both Biloxi and Baton Rouge. It's frustrating for me as well. There are non-disclosure agreements that are in play here, and that's why there is not a lot of access to information. I know a lot of you have contacted team offices and said, hey, are we renewing season tickets for next year? You haven't gotten an answer. That's because right now they can't give an answer. Again, very frustrating, but nonetheless, that's where we're at. There's a lot of, I won't say information, a lot of hints that are out there from all ends of the spectrum as far as what may or may not be going on. All I can say is at this point, we hope that we can save the two markets. Okay, as I've reported to you before, and I've mentioned on a couple of fan pages, there is, and this is the words that were given to me, a last-ditch effort to try and save Biloxi and Baton Rouge. That is underway. That is being headed by the league. So right now, I really don't have anything to report to tell you other than just using basic common sense and logic. Announcements of some kind are going to have to come by about a month from now, which would be right about the time that we're ending the playoffs, that we're playing the last couple of games and the Commissioner's Cup Finals. Right after that ends, the next focus turns towards the expansion draft, protected lists, which, by the way, you will not see. I'll just let you know right now, nobody is going to be releasing to the public their protected lists. That is going to be held confidentially within the Fed. There is an intranet that the teams use and have access to. There's emails that go between teams and between the league and teams and whatnot. Okay, that's the only place that information is going to be. We're not going to have a Facebook post saying, here's Columbus's 12 protected players. It's just not going to happen. So I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. But anyway, that is what's next on the agenda, and tweaking the schedule, getting the first draft, if you will, of the schedule matrix, which we will talk about in a couple weeks on the Flash Chat. I do that every year, and we'll see what happens this year with it. But anyway, that's what's coming up next, and all those things are handled in May to mid-May. We have the expansion draft by June, and by the time we have the expansion draft, the number of teams and the location of the teams and which teams are actually playing next year all has to be set really by June 1st, no later than that. So just for the league to kind of have an idea, well, what are we looking at? How many teams are going to be participating next year? What teams are ready to go, which aren't, which teams are out, if it comes to that. That's all going to come into play by mid-May. And so really we have a month. And by then we're going to know one way or the other whether Baton Rouge and or Biloxi are saved, or if they ride into the sunset. Okay, enough about that. Let's go on to the post that was shared by the Mid-South team on their socials. They expressed thank you for all of your input, for all of you participating in their Name the Team contest, submitting suggestions. Been overwhelming. They have received over 1,000 different possibilities and 1,000 different suggestions. And so, they're really just kind of overwhelmed in a good way. Regarding the response to this, it sounds like this is one of the biggest responses we've had to a team announcing, hey, help us name the team, or help us, get our logo and all that kind of stuff. There was a good response with the Minnesota team as well, but it really seems like everybody's on board with this Mid-South team. So, all right, let's see. Just to mention it, if in case you missed it, yes, we have officially crossed the 1 million fan mark in the league. I think after everything gets tabulated from this last weekend, I believe we're at about 1,035,000 thereabouts, and we have 16 games to go. So that's great. Columbus will cross the 100,000 fan threshold this upcoming weekend, and so they will become the 6th team to reach 100,000. That's awesome. So great response by fans this year. Okay, let's get into the big two pieces of nitty gritty, shall we? First one is talking a little bit about suspensions, and I want to update a couple things here. Some of you may have seen the post that I did with a live Facebook video on Tuesday. On Monday, talking about the suspensions and what happened, and why these suspensions were given. So I just want to run through these real quick once again, and just give you why they were given a suspension. First of all, there was only fines given to Indiana head coach Everett Thompson and Athens head coach Garrett Rutledge. There is no suspension coming. I do not believe the transaction page has been updated, but yeah, it's just a fine. I got that word from the Department of Player Safety. So, okay, going through the list of suspensions quickly. From the Baton Rouge Zydeco, Bailey Morissette gets a game for post-game unsportsmanlike conduct. That's the way it was phrased. Also getting that was Topeka's forward Trevor Lord, 1 game. Topeka's head coach Robbie Nichols was fined for that whole incident, and so that's the outcome of that event. Biloxi, Matt Stoya was given a 3-game suspension for physical abuse of an official. So his season is done. Danbury and Port Huron, that's the incident that got posted on a million different pages. Port Huron's Reggie Millette given 2 games for physically responding to just the antagonizing that he received all night from Dave McIsaac, who was the celebrity player signed by the Danbury Hat Tricks. The Hat Tricks player, for 1 game, he gets suspended by, and this I'll explain this really quickly. Everybody said, okay, McIsaac was a celebrity player. He's only playing 1 game. Why did he get a 2-game suspension? Basically, that's a really simple way of saying he is banned from the FPHL from playing once again. Because, first of all, celebrity players can only play 1 game a year. So it's a 2-year ban, but somebody would have to sign him to a celebrity contract, which he cannot fulfill because he can't play. So it's kind of pointless. All right. That's for his game-long thuggery against Reggie Millette, and that's what it was. Quite honestly, just this is just my personal feelings. I think that the Danbury hat tricks should have received a fine as well. And the reason why I say that is because there was one express purpose for signing McIsaac, and that was to cause trouble. All right. Usually, when you have a celebrity player signed and playing, it's to take a few shifts, wave to the crowd, you get a big round of applause. But McIsaac was actively trying to create mayhem and to create a situation that was adversarial. And Danbury even bragged about that on the social media post before the game even was played. So they knew what they were doing. We don't need that in the game. We just don't. Okay, if there's going to be a rivalry, if there's going to be intensity, if there's going to be an occasional fight because of history, a rivalry, or something like that, let it happen organically. Don't try and manufacture it. It just ends up looking really bad. Okay, I mentioned the fines to Everett Thompson and Garrett Rutledge. Also, Romeo Terrain, Indiana, suspended for 6 games. That means he's out for the remainder of this year. There's 3 games left. And he is also going to miss 3 games. If he comes back next year, wants to play in the Fed, he can do that, but he's going to have to sit the first 3 games. The reason for that is 2 things happened. First of all, he violated the league's stance on lewd gestures, which the league is dead serious about getting rid of, and they are very consistent in this manner. So there was 2 games there. He also received 4 games for throwing an Athens helmet into the stands, which this was addressed by the league earlier this season, and it was spelled out in black and white. You cannot throw a puck or a stick or equipment, whatever, into the stands. You do that, if it's deliberate, you will be suspended. And there you go. There's your 4-game suspension. So, 4 games plus 2 games equals 6. All right. Philippe Virgili and Malik Johnson, 2 games each as well for their role in the whole altercation that happened after the final horn sounded. So they will miss the upcoming games against Monroe this weekend. And boy, Athens could really use some help. They're missing 6 people because also absent this weekend is Eric Neely, who, this is for a good reason. Eric Neely was loaned to the ECHL's Atlanta Gladiators. So, that's a good thing. Good luck to Eric. But nonetheless, that's going to be one less player that Athens has. So they're going to be missing 6 regulars as they take on Monroe this weekend. No bueno. All right. Okay. So that wraps up our suspensions. Let's go on to the playoff schedule. We do know some of the dates, and keep in mind, this is a week ahead. So, I'm giving you what I know. First of all, I can tell you we do not know yet a schedule for Columbus. We still don't know who Columbus is going to be playing. It all depends on who wins this Athens-Monroe series this weekend. So what we do know, we'll share. First of all, in the Empire Division, both playoff series are set and scheduled. All right, first for the matchup between the Topeka Scarecrows and the Binghamton Black Bears. All right, game 1 is going to be at the Stormont Vale Events Center in Topeka, Wednesday, April 15th. It'll be a 7:05 local start time, 7:05 Central Time, so 8:05 Eastern. All right, then the venues shift, and Binghamton will host game 2, and if necessary, 3. Game 2 will be Friday night, 7 o'clock. Saturday night would be game 3, also 7 o'clock. All right, so Wednesday, Friday, Saturday for Topeka versus Binghamton. Now, for the Blue Ridge Bobcats taking on the Port Huron Prowlers, game 1 will be at Hitachi Arena in Wytheville, Virginia. on Wednesday the 15th, 7:30 puck drop. Again, that's Blue Ridge's home game. Then we go to Port Huron on Friday and Saturday. Start times to be announced. I believe they're probably looking at 7:05, but that has not been finalized yet. We will have something definite posted on the Fed webpage. What you do is you have all your little tabs, and you click on the Game Center tab. As you scroll down there, you see playoffs. You click on there, and there is going to be a bracket, and it's going to list the game times for each team there. Okay, now PD does have a schedule set, and they actually have two schedules set because it all depends on who wins between Athens and Monroe. Basically, PD is taking on the winner of the Continental Division. All right. If it is Athens, there'll be game one Friday in Athens. You're saying, well, wait a minute. I thought, the road team was supposed to get game one. Well, there is a conflict. The University of Georgia has a huge event downtown, right across from the arena. And so it's just not possible to have that event plus a hockey game at the same time. The infrastructure for the city would just be overwhelmed. So PD and Athens agreed to switch games 1 and 2. So game 1 will be in Athens, 7:05 on Friday. Saturday, it'll be at PD, 7:15. These teams are only not even 4 hours apart from each other, so that's not really a problem. Sunday, if necessary, will be in Athens on 19th. Start time to be announced for that. Now, if PD ends up playing Monroe, the schedule would be Thursday, April 16th, 7:15 at PD. Then we would go to Monroe for Saturday and Sunday. Saturday's start time would be 7:05 local, Central, 8:05 Eastern, the 18th in Monroe, and then time to be announced for the Sunday game if it is necessary. So there you go. Those are what we do know, and Columbus, again, hasn't had anything officially scheduled yet, but I can assure you that Monday, this upcoming Monday, everything is going to be set. You'll be able to see it posted. Columbus will probably post it on their socials as well. So that is our schedule. I know everybody's curious about that. That's as much information we can give you right now. All right, so that wraps up today's show. Thank you once again for joining me. We're down to the final week of the regular season, and then it's playoff time. Can you believe it? It's amazing how quickly the season goes by. All right, thank you again for watching, and always remember, if you'd like to send me a question for a future mailbag, you can always contact me at fedflash15@gmail.com. That's the email address, or you can DM me on Facebook at the Fed League Flash. All right, always remember that you can just click on more down the bottom if you just want to go right to a specific segment. Just click on more, and that brings up all your segments, all the timestamps. You can go right to that. I appreciate all of your support and for tuning in, and whether you're here for 10, 15 minutes, an hour, I appreciate it. All right, that wraps up today's show. I am Gary Ryan for the Fed League Flash. Until next time, keep your head up, keep your stick on the ice, and most importantly, be excellent to each other. We'll see you next week.